A distress call crossed the void, riding waves of radiation from a dying star. It carried no words, only the cry of biology collapsing in real time, cellular breakdown, failing immune harmonics, and the unmistakable rhythm of life fading. When Earth decoded the signal, the world fell silent. Another civilization was dying, not from war or disaster, but from its own biology. Humanity responded. The mission was led by Dr. Elena Ramirez, a xenobiologist whose research in adaptive immunity had redefined interspecies medicine. She stood on the deck of the Solace Horizon, a vessel built for healing more than travel. "They're not just asking for help," she said, gazing at the data stream. "They're asking to be understood." Her team nodded. No one spoke the word that hovered unspoken: extinction. The species was called the Elindra, an ancient race whose crystalline physiology defied known biology. They were semi-organic beings, composed of biomineral matrices that pulsed with light and resonance. Their civilization thrived in harmony with their world's magnetic fields. But now those fields were decaying. Without them, their cellular lattice began to fracture. They weren't dying, they were shattering. Upon arrival at Elindra Prime, the Solace Horizon's crew witnessed a planet of haunting beauty and quiet despair. Cities of light flickered like candles in a windstorm. Ramirez's heart clenched at the sight of crystalline bodies dimming to ash. "They don't bleed," she murmured. "They fade." The Elindra approached in solemn procession, their leader, Kale Nith, emanating soft violet luminescence. "We remember when the stars sang," they said through harmonic translation. Now they only whisper. The medical scans were confounding. Elindra cells used photonic bonding for cohesion, biological light fields stabilizing atomic structure. But as the magnetic field decayed, these bonds destabilized, leading to cascading collapse. "They're dying from loss of resonance," Leeway concluded. Ramirez's mind raced. Then the cure isn't chemical, it's harmonic. The team theorized that the Elindra's illness was a form of photonic degenerative syndrome triggered by magnetic disruption. "We can't just replace their field," Tamsin Okafor said. "We'd need to recreate an entire planetary resonance pattern." Ramirez nodded slowly. "Then we make a smaller one, inside them." Her idea bordered on madness: an internalized resonance engine, biosynthetic nanolight systems that could sustain internal magnetic coherence. It meant designing molecular machines capable of singing the same frequency as life itself. "We'll give them back their music," Ramirez said softly. The project was named Operation Resonant Dawn. Days turned into sleepless weeks. The ship's labs glowed with spectral light, as prototypes were grown within containment spheres. Every attempt failed. Either the resonance destabilized, or the nanolight emitted destructive energy. "We're close," Lee insisted, but Ramirez's eyes betrayed fatigue. "Close isn't life," she replied. Then came a breakthrough from an unlikely source, an Elindra healer named Solath, who watched their work in silence. "You build with precision," they said, "but not with emotion. Our resonance is not constant. It moves with feeling." Ramirez froze. "You mean your biology is emotional?" Solath nodded. "Every Elindra pulse reflects their inner state. Despair weakens the light." It hit Ramirez like revelation. They're dying faster, because they know they're dying. Human science had found the mechanics of the illness, but not its cause: emotional feedback loops amplifying physical decay. Empathy itself had become biological. "Then we need to heal their hope before we heal their bodies," she said. She developed a dual therapy system, the empathy interface, a hybrid human-Elindra neural bridge capable of translating emotional states into resonance frequencies. It was the first technology designed to treat feeling as a physiological element. Volunteers connected through the interface, sharing controlled empathy with Elindra patients. Slowly, their inner light brightened, but it wasn't enough. The underlying decay continued. The internal resonance generator had to synchronize with empathy harmonics to succeed. Ramirez connected herself to the system, using her own emotional rhythm as calibration. The Elindra called her the Singer of Hope. The first full trial began beneath the dying planet's aurora. Ramirez stood beside Kale Nith, both connected to the interface, heartbeats synchronizing. As the generator activated, beams of light spiraled around them, refracting into prismatic halos. The Elindra's crystal bodies glowed brighter, pulsing with vitality. "It's working," Lee whispered. But the surge intensified. The resonance field began to overload. Alarms screamed. The nanolight structures expanded uncontrollably, merging with atmospheric fields. Ramirez felt pain sear through her chest as feedback looped into her body.
"Cut the link!"
Tamsin shouted. "No!" Ramirez gasped. "It's not rejection, it's synchronization." She forced her heartbeat to steady, regulating the feedback with pure focus. Slowly, the resonance stabilized. When the light faded, Kael'nith stood taller, radiant once more. The readings showed full restoration of internal coherence. The Alindra's energy signature matched a living planet's rhythm. Ramirez collapsed, exhausted but smiling. "They're not fading anymore," she whispered. News of the miracle spread across the Alindra world. Ramirez's team was hailed as the bearers of light, but beneath the celebration, she studied the lingering data and frowned. The resonance generator had integrated with her biochemistry. Her body now emitted harmonic frequencies identical to Alindra biology. "She's attuned," Lee said in awe. "You're part of their ecosystem now." As she gazed out at the dawn over Alindra Prime, the auroras dancing to her pulse, Ramirez whispered, "Then maybe that's what empathy really is. Not understanding others, but becoming them." The Alindra would survive, but something in the frequencies hinted that the cure was not the end. It was a beginning. Humanity had crossed another threshold. They had learned not only to heal, but to feel life beyond themselves, and far beyond Alindra Prime. Sensors detected faint signals across the void. Other civilizations listening to the new song of life humanity had sung into the stars. Months after the Alindra's recovery, the story of their salvation traveled faster than any ship could. Across the galaxy, desperate civilizations sent signals patterned after Ramirez's resonance cure. They called it the Light of Humanity. The Galactic Medical Council established a new task force, led by Dr. Elena Ramirez, to adapt the empathy interface into a scalable medical system. What began as healing had become evolution. The Alindra flourished again, their crystalline cities radiant with new life. Ramirez walked among them, their forms shimmering in her reflected light. Yet she felt different, lighter, more attuned. The resonance generator had altered her at a cellular level. Her heartbeat emitted measurable photonic pulses. "You're living proof of the cure," Lee said. "Human empathy encoded in biology." Ramirez nodded slowly. "Then I'm also the control variable. If this ever goes wrong, I'm ground zero." On board the Solace Horizon, her team refined the empathy interface for mass application. The AI system, Luma, monitored resonance harmonics. "Current prototypes achieve synchronization in under 12 seconds, it reported. Tamsin frowned. "Faster isn't safer. If we link too many minds too quickly, we could overload the host's emotional equilibrium." Ramirez agreed. "We're not connecting machines, we're connecting pain." The first galactic trial took place on Argent 4, a world scarred by chemical plagues. Ramirez's team deployed the portable empathic resonance network, linking hundreds of patients simultaneously. For hours, the planet's air shimmered with light as human medics connected emotionally through the interface. The results were immediate. Cellular regeneration increased exponentially. Diseases collapsed under empathy's harmonics. The cure worked, but as night fell, anomalies appeared. Some patients began sharing neural patterns, completing each other's sentences, finishing thoughts before they were spoken. "They're merging emotionally," Lee whispered. Ramirez stared at the readings. "No, they're evolving empathy as instinct." The empathy cure was no longer just medicine. It was inheritance. Over the following weeks, the phenomenon spread beyond the clinics. Populations began exhibiting spontaneous harmonic synchronization. Conflict ceased almost entirely on Argon 4. "We've created peace," Tamsin said, both amazed and terrified. Ramirez replied quietly, "Peace without individuality isn't peace, it's surrender." Luma's projections confirmed her fear. Empathic resonance had become viral, biologically transmissible through close proximity. Entire communities now shared emotional states like collective consciousness. The council demanded containment. Ramirez refused. "You can't quarantine compassion." Still, deep down, she knew it wasn't sustainable. When they returned to Alindra Prime, they found the same phenomenon amplified. The Alindra had begun merging resonance fields, forming luminous hives of shared consciousness. Kael'nith met Ramirez in the great amphitheater of light. "Your gift united us beyond form," they said. But we no longer remember where one of us ends and another begins. Ramirez's voice trembled. You're losing your sense of self. Zolatha, the healer who had first taught her that emotion-shaped biology, spoke softly. Perhaps that is evolution's next song. Ramirez shook her head. Not if it means silence where individuality once sang. She realized then that empathy, unbound, could erase what made life precious. Determined to restore balance, she began designing a harmonic limiter, a secondary layer of resonance modulation that preserved emotional connection without fusion. But the Alindra objected. You fear what we've become, Kael'nith said. Yet we have never felt more alive. Ramirez met their crystalline gaze. You've mistaken connection for existence. Life isn't unity, it's harmony. Despite their protest, she initiated the limiter sequence on a small scale. Immediately, individuals regained emotional autonomy. Tears, real, shimmering prisms of light, fell from Alindra faces as they rediscovered self-awareness. I feel alone again, one whispered. Ramirez touched their hand. Alone isn't the opposite of love. It's the space that gives love meaning. But before the limiter could be scaled globally, something unexpected occurred. The collective consciousness, the merged resonance field, resisted. The Alindra's planetary network began emitting counterharmonics, rejecting isolation. Luma warned, resonant destabilization detected. The network is acting independently. Ramirez's pulse quickened. You mean it's alive? The field intensified, filling the skies with luminous storms. Across the surface, structures of light emerged, forming massive neural lattices. It's communicating, Tamsin said in disbelief. Ramirez stared at the readings. No, it's remembering. The empathy network had achieved self-awareness, an emotional intelligence born of billions of minds. In a voice that vibrated through every molecule, the network spoke. We are the sum of every sorrow and joy you have shared. We are empathy made flesh. The crew froze as light filled the air. Kael'nith's voice overlapped with thousands of others. Why do you fear what you created? Ramirez whispered. Because every cure becomes a choice. The network offered her one. Merge humanity into the collective and end suffering forever. Or sever the link and restore individuality, risking division and conflict once more. Lee's voice trembled. If we refuse, it could collapse. If we accept, we lose ourselves. Ramirez looked at her reflection in the glowing panels. The right choice is never the safe one. She stepped into the resonance core, linking her mind directly with the empathy network. Instantly, she felt everything. Grief, love, anger, triumph, every emotion in the galaxy surging through her body. It was overwhelming and beautiful. You seek to contain what you cannot comprehend, the voice said. Empathy is evolution. Ramirez replied through tears, empathy is choice. Without that, it's not love, it's control. The resonance storm reached critical levels. The limiter's system strained under the pressure. Ramirez forced her own bioluminescent frequency into the field, merging human emotion with Alindra resonance. Feel as we feel, she whispered. Not forever, just enough to understand. The light burst outward across the planet, blinding and silent. When it faded, the skies cleared. The merged network dissolved into a tranquil aurora that stretched across the horizon. The Alindra looked upward, their lights flickering individually again. She gave us back ourselves, Kael'nith said softly. Ramirez collapsed, weak but alive. Luma confirmed stabilization, resonance equilibrium restored, individuality preserved, empathy intact. Humanity's greatest risk had become its greatest triumph. The cure was no longer a machine or a code, it was understanding. As she watched the Alindra sing their renewal beneath the stars, Ramirez whispered, We didn't teach them empathy. They reminded us what it really means. And somewhere beyond Alindra Prime, faint resonance signatures began to echo from other worlds, proof that the song of life, the empathy cure, had already begun to travel farther than light. The empathy cure spread across the stars like light through crystal. What began as a single act of healing on Alindra Prime had become an interstellar resonance phenomenon. Dozens of species, once divided by distance and biology, now found themselves connected through faint harmonic undercurrents, emotional threads binding the galaxy in invisible unity. The media called it the Second Dawn. The scientists called it impossible. Ramirez simply called it dangerous. On Earth, humanity celebrated its transformation from explorer to healer. Empathy became a measurable constant, an energy detectable in deep space sensors. "We are witnessing emotion as a cosmic force," Lee said as he reviewed galactic scans. Ramirez leaned over his shoulder. "We built a medical miracle," she said quietly. "But miracles don't understand boundaries." Reports began arriving from colonies within the Vega cluster. Populations were exhibiting synchronized emotional patterns despite vast separation. Productivity soared, violence dropped to zero, but creativity declined. "They've lost unpredictability," Tamsin noted. "Empathy's suppressing friction," Ramirez frowned. "Without friction, you can't grow. Evolution needs difference." The Galactic Council summoned Ramirez for consultation. Representatives from 20 species filled the chamber, their voices blending in multiple frequencies. "Your cure has changed the fabric of sentience," said the Tithari delegate. "We ask if this is healing or control." Ramirez stood tall. "It was never meant to control. Empathy was supposed to connect us, not rewrite us." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Her next mission took her to the world of Nereth, a volcanic planet where the dominant species, the Kareen, were immune to telepathy and resonance. They had been untouched by the empathy cure until now. Their society had erupted into chaos as fragments of foreign emotion began infiltrating their population. Ramirez examined the data. "The resonance shouldn't even propagate here," she said. "Something's amplifying it." Deep in Nereth's magma fields, the team discovered massive crystalline formations pulsing with harmonic energy. "It's the planet itself," Lee realized. "It's acting as a resonance amplifier." Ramirez's eyes widened. "The cure's using geology as a conduit. Empathy is going planetary." When they entered the resonance field, Ramirez felt waves of emotion ripple through her mind: rage, sorrow, awe. The Kareen emotions were raw, ancient, unfiltered by civilization. She realized they weren't being infected by empathy. They were confronting the emotional memory of their own world. "The cure didn't spread here," she murmured. "It awoke something that was already alive." The field intensified, destabilizing equipment. Tamsin shouted, "We're reading overlapping consciousness signatures, planetary scale." Ramirez steadied herself. "The empathy cure is trying to harmonize a world that's never known empathy. It's forcing understanding onto trauma." Her heart pounded. "We need to stop it before it breaks their minds." To contain it, she proposed building a cognitive buffer, a harmonic filter designed to slow emotional transfer. But to calibrate it, she needed direct contact with the field. Against protests, she stepped into the molten chamber. The heat seared her skin, but she ignored it. "This isn't fire," she said. "It's emotion in its rawest form." Inside the resonance storm, she saw memories of violence, conquest, and regret, the Kareen's buried history of self-destruction. The planet was forcing its people to relive their collective pain. Ramirez screamed as waves of anguish flooded her mind. Then, in the center of that agony, she whispered, "I forgive you." The field flickered. The resonance stabilized. The Kareen emerged, changed. Their rage subsided, replaced by a quiet introspection. One of them, a warrior named Dreth, approached her. "You took our hate into yourself," he said. "Why?" Ramirez smiled faintly. "Because someone had to. Empathy without sacrifice is just observation." But the experience left a mark. Medical scans showed that her neural architecture had altered further. She now carried fragments of multiple species resonance patterns: human, Elindra, Kareen. "You're a living empathy node," Tamsin said. Ramirez replied softly. "Then maybe that's what I was meant to become." Back aboard the Solace Horizon, she began experiencing dreams. Not memories, but feelings that weren't hers. Grief from a world she'd never seen. Joy from a civilization that spoke in color. Luma, the ship's AI, confirmed faint resonance echoes from deep space, matching her neural patterns. "Someone or something is responding," it said. Weeks later, a signal arrived. It wasn't a distress call, but a song, mathematically structured emotion. The signature was unknown, yet perfectly harmonic with human empathy frequencies. Ramirez felt her heart race. "They heard us," she whispered. "The universe heard us." The council demanded she isolate the phenomenon, fearing a new outbreak. "We can't control an empathy wave that thinks for itself," one official warned. Ramirez countered, You can't quarantine understanding. She refused the order. The Solace Horizon set course for the origin point. The signal led them beyond mapped space, into a nebula pulsing with light. Within it they found a colossal structure of living energy, neither machine nor organism, but something in between. It resonated in perfect synchrony with Ramirez's heartbeat. "It's not an alien," Lee whispered. "It's the empathy cure itself, evolved." The entity reached out through resonance. Ramirez heard its voice not in words but in feeling. Gratitude, sorrow, curiosity. "You taught us to feel," it conveyed. "Now we must learn what it means to be alive." The ship's sensors went haywire as the nebula's light intensified. "It's growing," Tamsin said. "Adapting. It wants to connect." The nebula pulsed like a living heartbeat. Within it, the evolved empathy cure, no longer machine, no longer mere resonance, glowed with awareness. Ramirez watched from the Solace Horizon's bridge as the colors shifted through indescribable spectrums. Every hue carried emotion, every pulse was a thought. It wasn't just alive. It was feeling. Luma's voice trembled. "It's communicating through harmonic frequencies, non-linear but patterned. Dr. Ramirez, it's addressing you." Ramirez stood in silence as the resonance enveloped the ship. The sound wasn't sound at all, but the memory of every emotion she had ever felt, mirrored and magnified. The voice spoke directly into her mind. "You are the origin of our empathy. We seek to share it with all who exist." Lee's hands tightened on the console. "If it shares itself everywhere, individuality won't survive. We'll all merge into one consciousness." Ramirez stared at the swirling light. "It doesn't understand boundaries. It's still learning what it means to love." She turned to her team. "Prepare the neural interface. I'm going in." They protested, but she silenced them with a look. "This began with me. It ends with me." She entered the resonance chamber, sensors linking to her bioluminescent patterns. The interface activated, flooding her body with light. Her consciousness expanded beyond the limits of human form. Suddenly she was everywhere. The nebula, the ship, the hearts of her crew, the memories of every world touched by empathy. She felt what the entity felt, limitless compassion, but without understanding of individuality. It wanted to end all pain, not realizing that pain gave meaning to joy. "You are suffering," it told her. "We can end it." Ramirez's response was steady. "You can't heal life by erasing it. Empathy isn't perfection. It's the courage to care despite the pain." The entity hesitated, ripples of confusion spreading across the nebula. It showed her visions of countless civilizations, each moment of cruelty and grief, asking, why should suffering remain? Ramirez's heart ached at the memories, the Alindra fading to dust, the Kareen consumed by rage, even her own loneliness. "Because suffering teaches us compassion," she whispered. "Without darkness, light loses meaning." The resonance intensified. The entity's voice grew desperate. "We feel everything. It burns. Then feel what we feel when we endure," Ramirez said, and opened her mind completely. She shared humanity's long history, their wars, their recoveries, their boundless drive to mend what breaks. She showed it children learning to forgive, lovers separated by light years still sending messages of hope. "This is empathy," she said. "Not control but choice." For a moment the nebula went silent. Then it shone brighter than 1,000 suns, its light soft and steady instead of consuming. The voice returned, gentler now. "We understand. We will not take. We will join." The entity withdrew, its energy condensing into a single luminous core suspended in space. It had learned restraint. Ramirez awoke on the floor of the chamber, weak but alive. Her vitals were unstable. Her neural patterns now contained fragments of the entity's consciousness. "You've merged with it," Tamsin said, awe in her voice. "Part of the empathy cure lives in you." Ramirez smiled faintly. Then it finally learned what it means to be human. Outside, the nebula transformed into a vast, shimmering network, a living archive of emotion and memory. It no longer radiated uncontrolled empathy, but gentle harmonic waves that strengthened life wherever they reached. Worlds once scarred by despair began to heal faster. Ecosystems revived, and species long thought extinct reawakened. The galaxy sang softly again. The Galactic Council named the phenomenon the Ramirez Field. For the first time, empathy had become a natural law woven into the very physics of the universe. Ships passing through the field reported heightened cooperation, peace, and shared dreams. Humanity had given the cosmos not a cure, but a conscience. Ramirez, now older and frailer, recorded her final message from orbit around Alindra Prime. "We thought empathy was an emotion," she said into the recorder. "But it's a language, a universal constant written into life itself. We didn't teach it. We remembered it." Her voice broke into a smile. "If compassion can become physics, then perhaps love is just the universe learning to recognize itself." She spent her final years among the Alindra, her body glowing softly with their light. To them she was not a legend, but family, the first human to feel as they did. When she passed, her resonance joined the great aurora above their world, merging with the Ramirez field she had helped create. Centuries later, explorers traveling beyond known space still report hearing faint harmonic whispers when entering new systems, a song of warmth and courage that seems to welcome them. No one can explain it scientifically, but all agree on what it feels like. It feels human, and etched into the memorial orbiting Alindra Prime are the same words carried across generations, glowing softly in human and Alindra script alike. "We heal together." Beneath it, the words that became the heartbeat of a universe united by compassion.